Peter Shane joins us now to discuss this. He's a distinguished scholar in residence and an adjunct professor of law at New York University's School of Law. Good morning, Peter. Thanks for being with us. Let's just start at the top level here. Is this legal? What is the legal basis of this fund? Because you wonder why it was dropped on senators at the last minute, not in the initial agreement.
There is a strong argument that the fund is not lawful. What the president has done is tried to take advantage of a permanent fund that exists for the Justice Department to settle cases brought against it. Sort of the mechanism here is that Trump sued the government, sued himself, as he himself has said, in order to recover damages that supposedly were imposed on him because of the leak of his tax records under the Biden administration. And then the government, again, which he is in charge of, supposedly is able to...
All right, friends. Welcome back to Dr. John Podcast family. Trump's belief that the courts would bend to his will has been shattered as judges, including conservative Republican appointees, have systematically rejected his lawsuits as frivolous and imposed devastating consequences. The legal reckoning he spent years avoiding has arrived, turning his weaponized court strategy against him. The scope of Trump's legal defeats is staggering when you actually take the time to examine it. This is not a case of one bad ruling or a single setback that can be dismissed as an anomaly. This is a comprehensive, systematic rejection of Trump's entire legal strategy by multiple courts at multiple levels. The 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, one of the most conservative appellate circuits in the country, unanimously upheld nearly $1 million in sanctions against Trump for filing a lawsuit that the court described as frivolous, abusive, and devoid of legal merit.
Take this judgment fund that exists at the Justice Department and use it to settle the litigation against the president. Against the government. And it can settle, again, the theory is that it can bring the settlement by creating this fund. But this mechanism is simply an attempt to get around Congress's power of the purse. The Constitution, requires the president to spend money for purposes that Congress mandates, and doesn't want him to spend money, doesn't allow him to spend money that Congress has not appropriated. So this is just a scheme to get around that power of the purse.
So what might it take to get around this use of the fund in such a way? Can the president get around some of the internal opposition in his party? And on the flip side, how can Congress get its oversight powers back in this way?
Well, the way for Congress to do it is simply to enact legislation that prohibits the use of federal funds.
This was not a close decision. This was not a divided panel. This was 3 conservative judges, including Chief Judge William Pryor, a George W. Bush appointee, looking at Trump's claims and concluding that they had no basis in law, that they violated the basic requirements of the causes of action Trump was trying to invoke, and that Trump should be held financially responsible for wasting the court's time. And this ruling did not come in isolation. Just days earlier, another appeals court panel, this one including 2 judges that Trump himself had appointed to the bench, rejected his $475 million defamation lawsuit against CNN, holding that the network's use of the phrase "big lie" to describe Trump's false election claims was protected opinion. 2 Trump appointees, judges who owe their positions to Trump, ruled against him. They said his lawsuit had no merit.
I would say for offering compensation to the J6ers, but you could say for offering compensation to anyone as part of a settlement for a lawsuit that is not a genuine lawsuit. This is a kind of scheme of collusion, if you will, between Trump himself and his own Justice Department. And again, there's just a legal question whether the settlement fund can be used to settle a case that is actually not a case, that is not really within the court's power ever to entertain. There is a lawsuit, as you undoubtedly know, that was brought by police officers who were working the Capitol on that day. The issue there is one of standing. Can they show that they are being injured by the existence of the fund? Their argument is that they are being injured, that they are routinely subject to threats of bodily harm, of death threats.
They said his claims were baseless. They said the First Amendment protected CNN's right to call Trump a liar. The message could not be clearer. Trump's legal reign is over. What makes these defeats particularly devastating for Trump is the nature of the claims he was making and the way the courts eviscerated them. Let's start with the Clinton lawsuit, the case that resulted in nearly $1 million in sanctions and the stinging rebuke from the 11th Circuit. Trump's lawsuit against Hillary Clinton, James Comey, the Democratic National Committee, and others was supposed to be the mother of all lawsuits, the legal equivalent of a nuclear strike against everyone Trump blamed for the Russia investigation. He threw everything at the wall, alleging RICO violations, malicious prosecution, and trade secret theft.
Let's continue this conversation with our legal contributor, James Sample. James, could this lawsuit by former Capitol officers carry any weight?
Andrew, I think it carries a lot of moral weight. I think it carries a lot of weight in terms of the court of public opinion, but they have a very difficult mountain to climb in terms of establishing constitutional standing. The requirements for standing, in other words, the ability to press your claim in federal court, that you need to be injured in fact, there needs to be causation that is traceable to the particular harm you're talking about right now, the particular, in this case, it would be to the fund itself. And there needs to be the ability to seek a remedy. And so here, the question is really going to be, obviously, these officers are tremendously sympathetic and morally, they are standing on firm ground. But the question becomes, does the fund, the settlement fund itself, actually harm them in the future? Is any threat or future harm that they might face, they clearly have already faced harm, they've already suffered injury.
He accused Clinton and the others of running a criminal enterprise like the mob. He claimed they had conspired to defraud him and destroy his campaign. He demanded massive damages. But when the judges actually looked at the claims, they found that Trump's lawsuit was built on nothing but hot air and political grievance. The RICO claim failed because Trump couldn't show the elements required for a RICO violation. The malicious prosecution claim failed because there was no actual prosecution to base it on. The trade secret claim failed because Trump couldn't identify any actual trade secret that had been stolen. The judges went through each claim methodically, explaining why it was deficient, why it lacked the necessary elements, why it had no chance of success. And then they imposed sanctions.
But will they suffer additional injury that is traceable to the fund? That is a difficult thing to establish, and typically taxpayers, on account of being taxpayers, even if they oppose the particular legislation or the particular scheme, don't have the ability to press a claim in federal court. That doctrine is extremely prohibitive. So the question here is not whether this is corrupt, collusive. It is all of those things. It is unconstitutional on numerous grounds. The question, though, is who has the standing to press that case?
There's another element in all of this, too, James. One of the president's allies, for example, is already attempting to benefit from the fund. Former Trump official Michael Caputo says he's asking for $2.7 million, claiming that he was targeted by the FBI probe into Russian election interference in 2016. Is he going to get that?
He very well could, Andrew. So could Mike Lindell, the so-called My Pillow guy. So could Enrique Tarrio, the individual who was sentenced to 22 years for seditious conspiracy.
Nearly $1 million to send a message that this kind of abuse of the judicial system would not be tolerated. The CNN lawsuit is equally instructive, both for what it reveals about Trump's strategy and for the way the courts responded to it. Trump sued CNN for defamation because the network used the term big lie to describe his false claims about election fraud. Trump wanted $475 million in damages, an amount that could have bankrupted the network and sent a chilling message to any other media organization that dared to criticize him. But the appeals court, including 2 Trump appointees, looked at the case and said no. The court held that the term big lie is protected opinion, not a statement of fact that can be the basis of a defamation claim. The court said that calling Trump a liar, even in colorful language, is protected speech under the First Amendment. The court said that CNN had the right to criticize Trump, to call his claims false, to use whatever language they wanted to describe his conduct. And the court said Trump could not use defamation lawsuits to silence his critics. This is a fundamental blow to Trump's strategy of using the courts to attack the media. It says that Trump cannot sue journalists for doing their jobs. It says that Trump cannot use the threat of litigation to intimidate news organizations. It says that the First Amendment protects robust criticism of public figures, even when that criticism is harsh and damaging. The significance of these rulings cannot be overstated because they represent a complete rejection of Trump's legal playbook. For years, Trump has used lawsuits as a weapon of political warfare. He has sued his enemies to harass them, to drain their resources, to intimidate them into silence. He has filed frivolous claims knowing that even if they fail, the process itself would be punishing for his targets. He has weaponized the courts in a way that few American politicians have ever attempted. But the courts are now pushing back. They are saying that this strategy is unacceptable. They are saying that Trump cannot use the judicial system as a political weapon. They are saying that there are consequences for abusing the courts. And the message is coming from conservative judges, from Republican appointees, from the very people Trump thought would be on his side. This is what makes these rulings so devastating for Trump. He cannot dismiss them as partisan attacks. He cannot claim that liberal judges are out to get him. He cannot say the system is rigged, because conservative judges, including his own appointees, are ruling against him. They are telling him that his claims have no merit. They are telling him that he is abusing the judicial system. They are telling him that enough is enough. The specific findings of the 11th Circuit are particularly damning for Trump. The court did not just rule against Trump, it explained in detail why his claims were frivolous and why the sanctions against him were justified. The court found that Trump's malicious prosecution claim was frivolous because there was no actual prosecution. You cannot claim malicious prosecution unless someone actually prosecuted you. The Russia investigation was not a prosecution. It was a counterintelligence investigation. It did not result in criminal charges against Trump. So Trump's malicious prosecution claim had no basis in law. The court found that Trump's RICO claim was frivolous because it lacked the essential elements of a RICO violation. RICO, the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, is used against organized crime. It requires evidence of a criminal enterprise engaged in a pattern of racketeering activity. Trump's lawsuit alleged none of that. It just threw around RICO language without actually showing that a RICO violation had occurred. The court found that Trump's trade secret claim was frivolous because it identified no actual trade secret. Trade secrets are confidential information that gives a business a competitive advantage. Trump claimed that classified information and law enforcement information were trade secrets, but that's not how trade secrets work. And Trump couldn't even identify what the supposed trade secrets were. So every single claim in Trump's lawsuit was defective. Every single claim failed to meet the basic legal requirements. And Trump, as a sophisticated litigant who knows the rules of civil procedure, knew this when he filed the lawsuit. He filed it anyway. He filed it as a political weapon, and the court held him accountable. The language that the judges used in their opinions is extraordinarily harsh, the kind of language that judges typically reserve for the most egregious cases of misconduct. Judge Donald Middlebrooks, the federal district judge who first handled the Clinton case, went further than any judge has ever gone in describing Trump's abuse of the judicial system. He called Trump a prolific and sophisticated litigant, meaning that Trump has filed many lawsuits and knows how the legal system works. He said Trump was the mastermind of strategic abuse of the judicial process, meaning that Trump deliberately used the courts as a weapon, knowing that his claims were frivolous. He said Trump was engaging in a pattern of filing lawsuits to advance his political agenda and harass his perceived enemies. This is not the language of a judge who is simply ruling against a party. This is the language of a judge who is documenting misconduct, who is putting on the record that a party has abused the judicial system, who is making findings that will follow that party for years to come. And the 11th Circuit agreed with every word of it. The appeals court said that the district court's findings were supported by the record. The appeals court said that the sanctions were justified. The appeals court said that Trump's lawsuit was frivolous in multiple ways and that it constituted an abuse of judicial resources. The implications of these findings extend far beyond the immediate cases. When a federal appellate court finds that a litigant has engaged in strategic abuse of the judicial process, that finding becomes part of the public record. Other judges can consider it, other courts can reference it, prosecutors can use it as evidence of a pattern of misconduct. The fact that a conservative appellate court led by a Bush appointee has documented Trump's abuse of the judicial system is going to have consequences for every future legal proceeding involving Trump. Trump. When Trump files his next lawsuit, the judge is going to remember that the 11th Circuit called Trump's claims frivolous. When Trump makes his next legal argument, the judge is going to remember that a conservative appeals court said Trump was abusing the judicial system. When Trump tries to claim that he is being unfairly targeted, the judge is going to remember that the courts have already found that Trump is a sophisticated litigant who knowingly files frivolous claims. Trump has poisoned his own well, he has damaged his own credibility, he has made it harder for himself to be taken seriously in court. And all of this damage was self-inflicted. Trump could have chosen to file legitimate lawsuits. Trump could have chosen to accept the rulings against him. Trump could have chosen to change his behavior, but Trump did none of that. Trump doubled down. Trump kept fighting. Trump kept filing frivolous claims. And now the courts have had enough. The CNN decision is equally significant, not just for what it says about Trump's legal strategy, but for what it says about the First Amendment and the limits of defamation law. The court held that CNN's use of the phrase big lie is protected opinion because it is not a factual claim that can be proven true or false. In defamation law, the distinction between fact and opinion is crucial. You can sue someone for saying something false about you if it is a factual statement, but you cannot sue someone for expressing an opinion, no matter how critical or damaging that opinion might be. The court said that calling Trump's election claims a big lie is a way of saying that Trump is a liar. It is an opinion about Trump's conduct. It is not a specific factual claim that CNN can be held accountable for, and the court protected CNN's right to express that opinion. This is a huge victory for free speech and press freedom. It says that media organizations can criticize public figures without fear of being sued. It says that calling a politician a liar is protected speech. It says that Trump cannot use defamation lawsuits to silence his critics. And the fact that 2 Trump appointees joined this decision is particularly significant. It means that even judges who owe their positions to Trump are not willing to go along with his assault on press freedom. It means that the First Amendment has defenders in the judiciary, even among conservative judges who might otherwise be sympathetic to Trump. The broader pattern emerging from these cases is devastating for Trump's legal strategy. He has now lost major cases in multiple courts, on multiple issues, with multiple judges. He has lost in the 11th Circuit, a conservative appellate court. He has lost with his own appointees on the bench. He has lost on RICO claims, malicious prosecution claims, trade secret claims, and defamation claims. He is losing across the board. And the losses are not just procedural dismissals. They are substantive rulings that go to the heart of Trump's claims and find them lacking. The courts are not just saying that Trump filed his papers wrong or missed a deadline. The courts are saying that Trump's claims have no legal basis. They are saying that Trump is trying to use the courts for purposes they were never intended to serve. They are saying that Trump is abusing the judicial system. And they are imposing sanctions to make sure that Trump and others like him understand that this behavior will not be tolerated. The nearly $1 million in sanctions that Trump had to pay is not just a financial penalty. It is a message. It is a statement that the courts will not be used as a political weapon. It is a warning to anyone who might be tempted to follow Trump's example. The financial consequences of these defeats are significant and likely to grow. Trump paid nearly $1 million in sanctions in the Clinton case. That's real money that Trump could have used for other things, money that Trump is losing because he abused the courts. And if Trump keeps filing frivolous lawsuits, he is going to keep paying sanctions. Judges are going to remember that the 11th Circuit has already sanctioned Trump. They are going to be quicker to impose sanctions in future cases. They are going to be more skeptical of Trump's claims. They are going to be more willing to dismiss his cases and hold him accountable for his abuse of the judicial system. The financial pressure on Trump is going to mount with each new defeat. And eventually, Trump is going to run out of money to pay sanctions. Eventually, the financial consequences are going to become so severe that even Trump will have to change his behavior. But the question is whether Trump is capable of learning from consequences. Throughout his life, Trump has shown a remarkable ability to ignore feedback and double down on failed strategies. He has never admitted fault. He has never accepted responsibility. He has never changed his behavior in response to negative outcomes. So there is every reason to believe that Trump will keep filing frivolous lawsuits, keep losing, keep getting sanctioned, and keep insisting that he is right despite all evidence to the contrary. This is where the trajectory of Trump's legal strategy is leading. He is not going to stop filing lawsuits. He is not going to admit that he was wrong. He is not going to accept the rulings of the courts. He is going to keep fighting, keep appealing, keep filing new cases, and keep losing. And each loss is going to damage his credibility a little bit more. Each loss is going to make judges a little bit more skeptical. Each loss is going to weaken his legal position. Eventually, Trump is going to find himself in a position where no court will take him seriously. Judges will see his name on a filing and presume that his claims are frivolous. They will dismiss his cases with prejudice and impose sanctions without a second thought. Trump will have completely lost the ability to use the courts as a political weapon, and that will be the end of his legal reign. The era of Trump using lawsuits to attack his enemies, to harass his critics, to intimidate the media, that era is coming to an end. The courts have had enough. The judges have pushed back. The system is working the way it was designed to work, and Trump is on the losing side of history. Let's talk about what these losses mean for Trump's broader legal situation, particularly the criminal investigations and prosecutions that are looming over his head. The findings of the 11th Circuit and the other courts that have ruled against Trump are going to be relevant in those criminal cases. Prosecutors are going to point to these decisions as evidence of Trump's pattern of misconduct. They are going to say that courts have already found that Trump abused the judicial system. They are going to say that courts have already found that Trump made false claims without any basis in law. They are going to say that courts have already found that Trump is a sophisticated litigant who knowingly filed frivolous claims, and those findings are going to be used against Trump in criminal trials. They are going to help prosecutors establish that Trump had a pattern of dishonesty and misconduct. They are going to help prosecutors show that Trump was willing to abuse the legal system to achieve his goals. They are going to help prosecutors convict Trump and send him to prison. The civil sanctions are just the beginning. The judicial findings are just the start. The real reckoning is coming, and it is going to be much more severe. Trump is facing criminal investigations related to his attempt to overturn the 2020 election, his role in the January 6th insurrection, and his mishandling of classified documents. Those investigations are moving forward, and they are likely to result in criminal charges. And when Trump goes to trial, these appellate decisions are going to be hanging over his head. The findings of abuse are going to prejudice the case against him. The sanctions are going to show judges and juries that Trump has a pattern of abusing the system. The courts have documented Trump's misconduct in ways that will be very difficult for him to overcome. This is the legacy of Trump's legal strategy. By using the courts as a political weapon, Trump has created a record of abuse that is now being used against him. By filing frivolous lawsuits, Trump has given prosecutors evidence that he is willing to abuse the legal system for his own benefit. By refusing to accept the rulings of the courts, Trump has demonstrated a pattern of lawlessness that will be very difficult to defend against. The significance of conservative judges ruling against Trump cannot be overstated. If these rulings had come from liberal judges, Trump could claim that they were politically motivated. He could say that the courts were biased against him. He could rally his supporters with claims of a witch hunt. But these rulings are coming from conservative judges, from Republican appointees, from the very people Trump thought would be on his side. Chief Judge William Pryor, who wrote the 11th Circuit opinion, is a George W. Bush appointee. He was on Trump's shortlist for the Supreme Court. He is the kind of judge that conservatives trust and admire. And he looked at Trump's claims and said they were frivolous. He said Trump was abusing the judicial system. He said Trump should be sanctioned. This is not a partisan attack. This is a conservative judge doing his job. This is a judge upholding the rule of law and protecting the integrity of the judicial system. And Trump cannot escape the implications of that. The two Trump appointees who ruled against him in the CNN case are even more significant. These are judges who owe their positions to Trump. Trump appointed them to the bench. They are supposed to be his allies. They are supposed to be his supporters. But when faced with a case involving Trump's attempt to silence a media organization, they did not hesitate. They ruled against him. They said his lawsuit had no merit. They said the First Amendment protected CNN's right to criticize him. They demonstrated that even judges who owe their positions to Trump are not willing to go along with his attacks on press freedom. That is a powerful statement. It tells us that the judiciary is independent. It tells us that judges take their oaths seriously. It tells us that even judges who are politically aligned with Trump will rule against him when he is wrong. And that is exactly what the judicial system is supposed to do. The broader message of these rulings is that the courts are not going to be Trump's weapon. They are not going to help him attack his enemies. They are not going to let him use the judicial system as a political tool. They are going to uphold the rule of law even when it means ruling against the president. They are going to protect the integrity of the system even when it means imposing sanctions on a powerful litigant. They are going to stand up for the First Amendment even when it means protecting harsh criticism of a public figure. This is the system working the way it was designed to work. The courts are the check on executive power. The courts are the safeguard against abuse, and the courts are doing their job. Trump thought he could weaponize the courts. He thought he could use judges as his personal army. But the courts have proven him wrong. They have pushed back. They have held him accountable. And they have demonstrated that no one is above the law, not even the president. So what happens next? Trump is going to keep filing lawsuits. He is not going to stop. He is not capable of stopping. His entire identity is built on fighting. His entire strategy is built on never backing down. He is going to keep losing, keep getting sanctioned, keep having his claims rejected. And each loss is going to make the next loss more likely. Each loss is going to damage his credibility. Each loss is going to strengthen the case against him. The trajectory is clear. Trump is heading toward a reckoning that he cannot avoid. The courts have documented his misconduct. The prosecutors are building their cases. The evidence is mounting, and there is nothing Trump can do to stop it. He can file all the lawsuits he wants. He can appeal all the decisions he wants. He can claim all the injustice he wants, but the courts are not going to save him. The judges are not going to protect him. The system is not going to let him off the hook. Trump's legal reign is over. The era of using the courts as a political weapon is ending, and the consequences are going to be devastating for Trump. The 11th Circuit has spoken. The conservative judges have spoken. The courts have spoken, and they have said that Trump is wrong. He has abused the system. He has filed frivolous claims. He has wasted judicial resources, and he will be held accountable. This is the end of Trump's legal reign and the beginning of his reckoning.